loving person who just wants to live her life.
And investigators' only hope lies in the eyewitness account of a 6-year-old.
She walked in this house and she saw her great-grandmother on the floor.
It is always difficult when you have to question a child, but we need to talk to that 6-year-old kid.
Then, a corpse in an empty apartment holds on to a secret.
The gun was placed right up against the scalp, but where's the gun?
Leaving Kenda with a case that hits close to home.
You knew what you were getting into.
It is distressing to me when it's someone I know well. What's going on? The world remains a dangerous place. Life is random. You can always be in the wrong place at precisely the wrong moment, through no fault of your own.
A summer heat wave is sweeping through Colorado Springs. But it's not stopping Ivory Montoya and her 6-year-old daughter, Monica, from finding ways to relax.
Ivory is flipping through a magazine as her daughter, Monica, is drawing a picture. And it's just a quiet day.
Mommy, look, I finished.
Oh, honey, very good. Who is it?
It's Nona, silly. Do you like it?
I love it.
Nona is Monica's great-grandmother, who lives in the same apartment complex as Monica and Ivory.
I want to watch a video now. Can I go over to Nona's and get one?
Sure, baby. Show her your picture, but come right back.
It's not unusual that you would let your child go back and forth between the apartments. And when Monica wanted to go get a video, it was pretty normal.
But a few minutes after she leaves, Ivory realizes Monica forgot to take her picture.
As Ivory exits her apartment, she sees Monica running towards her.
Mommy, Nona's hurt. A bad man hurt Nona.
What?
She was obviously upset.
You go back to the house and don't leave till I get back. Do you understand?
Okay.
Go.
Ivory notices the door ajar,
Nona?
and then she hears moaning coming from her grandmother's bedroom. She sees her grandmother laying in a huge pool of blood.
Oh my God, Nona! Nona! Help! Please help! Please help!
Meanwhile, across town, Joe Kenda is working a case and sweating it out in the stifling heat.
It'll be like this all week? That's what I hear.
I'm at the scene of this shooting.
Boy.
And the requirement at the time was that if you're in homicide, you will wear a suit and tie. When it's hot, it becomes extremely uncomfortable. And it tends to increase the calls for the police dramatically.
Dispatch for Kenda.
Go for Kenda.
We have a report of a stabbing at 900 South Union.
10-4, I'll be right there. Kenda out. Well, here we go. Now let me know when you get things wrapped up here. I'm gonna go check that out. Take care of it.
I did have occasions when there were multiple serious assaults going on at the same time. It's just the luck of the draw. So I left a sergeant at this shooting scene and went to the stabbing.
15 minutes later, Kenda arrives at the apartment complex, which is located on the east side of town. Detective Brian Ritz is there to greet him.
How you doing, Lieutenant?
Hey, Brian. So what we got?
We have a 62-year-old female with a single stab wound to the throat. Just heard from the hospital, and the victim died.
So what's the victim's name?
Maria Montoya.
Maria was described as an avid churchgoer, very friendly person that people see all the time, reads her Bible, and is just a very pleasant person.
Maria Montoya moved there because of her granddaughter and her great-granddaughter. You had 3 generations of a family living in the same complex.
Do we have any witnesses?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just as troubling.
He reports that Ivory Montoya and the great-granddaughter, who is 6 years old, found their grandmother in this apartment bleeding.
A 6-year-old. Damn.
Yeah, she's with her mom now.
Has anyone talked to him yet?
No, not yet.
I would like to know what they know, but I'm not a monster. I'm not going to interfere with a 6-year-old child who's just been placed in her first, probably, traumatic situation.
How about the neighbors? Anyone see anything?
I've got officers canvassing the complex now.
We're going to do neighborhood follow-up to try to, 1, learn more about our victim, and 2, if anybody heard or saw anything.
All right, let's go and take a look. Sure.
As I walk past the coffee table, I see a Bible that has the name of the victim embossed on it. And I thought, here's a lady with a big family, a loving person who just wants to live her life. It hurt me to look at that. But you have to recover from it and realize that you have a job to do.
Medic said it was one wound?
Yeah, got it right in the throat.
She's got a stab wound in the central throat, large knife, single wound, must have cut something significant to have this much blood.
Why would someone want to kill Maria Montoya? As Kenda scans the room, a possible motive comes into focus.
There's a jewelry box that's open, the drawer that's partially open, so some effort is taken looking for valuables.
Did you notice anything else in the house out of place?
No, there's no signs of forced entry on the front door or the windows.
That would indicate that possibly the victim let her killer in.
Right, let's go check the rest of the house.
Kenda searches the apartment for more clues. And in the kitchen, it's not what he finds, but what he doesn't, that gets his attention.
There's a knife block in the kitchen, but the big carving knife that has the widest opening for the biggest blade is empty.
Hey, Brian, come check it out. Missing knife.
Weapon of opportunity.
Exactly.
The person responsible for the death of Maria observes something that can be used as a weapon, and it's a snap decision to pick it up and use it.
Let me show you something else.
The missing knife isn't the only weapon of opportunity present in the kitchen, but the one Kenda finds on the table is harder to explain.
On the kitchen table is a fireplace poker.
Did you see a fireplace or a fire pit around here?
I didn't, no.
And this place is way too neat for this to have been here for days.
Yeah.
Someone put it here today.
There's no blood on it. It doesn't appear to be used during this crime.
Is it possible for the killer to have brought this as a potential weapon and then saw the knife block and decided he needed something better and picked up a knife? That's entirely possible.
Make sure CSI bags it up and checks it for prints. Might be the only lead we get.
Will do.
Lieutenant, I think we have something you might want to see.
What you got?
One of our crime scene techs has now found a faint footprint in possibly blood out on the front concrete.
The blood droplets and shoe print are leading away from the door.
Is there any pattern in the print?
It's faint. It's not an EMT boot, I'm sure of that.
Let's go take a look.
So we go out where they are, and you can pick them out. They appear to be maybe near the toe.
It's like the front of a shoe. It's kind of pointy.
It has a pattern in it that kind of moves to a point.
Maybe a cowboy boot?
Yeah, it could be. Look how far apart there. This guy was running, not walking. Looks like he was going toward the staircases.
But they stopped short of the staircases. So did our man turn left and go down? Or did he turn right and go up?
Damn, they just kind of fade away.
Yeah, but those stairs, they don't lead to the parking lot. I think there's a possibility that our person lives here too.
One does not enter a premise without some knowledge of who's there. Is somebody sitting at their kitchen table cleaning their shotgun?
Well, it stands to reason that he would have known Maria lives alone.
Only way to know that is if you live around here.
We're standing there considering all these facts when one of the officers doing the canvassing
Smith to Kenda.
gets on the radio.
Go for Kenda.
We got a possible suspect here. Male, 25. He seemed really nervous when I approached. He's got some blood on his shirt.
What kind of shoes is he wearing?
Looks like cowboy boots.
He's acting strangely. He's got blood in his clothes, and he's wearing cowboy boots. Well now, who might you be? We're investigating the death of 62-year-old Maria Montoya, who was found killed in her apartment by an intruder. Officers have discovered a young male who has blood in his clothing.
So what do we got?
I got a 25-year-old male. His name is Anthony Jackson. I've dealt with him in the past. Took him in on assault. You should also know his street name's Psycho.
Psycho.
The officer whispers in my ear that his street name is Psycho. Swell. I might be looking for one of those at the moment.
Who's the girl?
Well, her name's Tanya Slater. We found them together. She's got blood on her as well.
We've got Psycho and his girlfriend Tanya, two people with blood on them. Let's see how they can explain that.
Why don't you take Tanya, I'll take Anthony.
Sure.
We obviously want to split them up for the purpose of conducting an interview. If they provide very different statements, we may be looking at our suspect.
Did Anthony Jackson, aka Psycho, murder Maria Montoya, then make off with her jewelry?
Let me know if Psycho lives up to his name.
Anthony Jackson, right?
Yeah, that's me.
I hear you like to beat people up. And you've got quite the moniker. Psycho?
A lot of people think I'm trouble, but I gave all of that up.
He says, I've had my problems, but I got a little older and a little smarter, and I don't act that way anymore. But the name's stuck.
We've got a murdered woman in the apartment complex. My problem is you've got blood all over your shirt and on your boots. Why is that?
Listen, it's not what it looks like, I promise.
All right, tell me what happened.
Well, I was hanging out with Tanya. We were coming back from the laundry room, and we heard a woman screaming.
Please help!
What the hell was that?
What did you guys do when you both heard the screaming?
We were pretty freaked out. And I wasn't trying to get myself killed.
Help! Please help!
So I grabbed the poker off the barbecue, and then we ran over.
They still hear the screaming.
Help! Please help!
And they encounter Ivory Montoya, who is screaming that her grandmother is dying in the bedroom.
Go get a towel, hurry up, hurry up! We have to put pressure on it, hurry up! Stay with me.
They are pushing on her throat, but there's so much blood. Anthony uses the expression, blood is squirting out of her. And despite the towels, they can't stop it.
She's dead, I'm sorry, we gotta go.
What?
According to Anthony, he and Tanya left when they heard the ambulance arriving.
They took over, and that's why we're here now.
But Anthony, you weren't here when the police got here. You know the police would have wanted to talk to both of you.
Anthony explains he ran because he thought police might believe he was involved in the stabbing.
He's been known to have numerous run-ins with law enforcement and has somewhat of a questionable past. So for the fact of him not wanting to be on scene of a possible homicide, it's understandable.
I just tried to help, and that's what happened.
All right, Anthony. Wait here for a minute. That officer will be right over.
Somebody will be right back with you, okay?
And point by point, Tanya says the same, and the same, and the same. Ritz returns from where he's been talking to Tanya.
How'd it go?
Independently interviewed, they have exactly the same story.
We probably ought to talk to Ivory.
Let's go find her. All right.
Ultimately, she will be the deciding factor regarding Anthony, aka Psycho, and Tanya.
Kenda and Ritz find a grief-stricken Ivory Montoya outside her apartment.
Ivory? I'm Lieutenant Kenda. Is that Detective Ritz? Very sorry about what happened. Did anyone come in the apartment and try and help you today?
A man and a woman. I know they live in the complex. The girl was holding a fireplace poker. They tried to save Nona.
So that confirms everything Anthony has to say and everything Tanya has to say. This is a person who doesn't even know their names. She has no intention of protecting anyone.
With Anthony and Tanya no longer persons of interest, Kenda must press Ivory Montoya for other possible leads.
We think that your grandmother might have known who did this to her. Can you think of anyone that would have wanted to harm her?
There was this guy. His name is Jimmy White. He lived in the apartments over here.
She says Jimmy is a pest in the neighborhood, actually. He doesn't work.
He was always knocking on her door. He seems strange to her. He was always asking her for money.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, Maria. Can I borrow a few bucks from you? I'm kind of short on some things I need.
Sure. Give me a second.
Thanks.
She would give it to him just to make him go away.
Now that is significant to me. A man who wants money. Money is the motive in going into that apartment. Murder was the result.
Please find out who did this. She didn't deserve it.
Don't worry. I will find out who did it. Again, I'm very sorry. I'm gonna head back to HQ and check on this guy.
Yeah.
Why don't you keep canvassing the place, see if you can find any more information.
Got it.
Armed with this new information, Kenda heads back to headquarters, where he conducts a background check on Jimmy White.
We run him NCIC. National Crime Information Center will provide you with an offline search, a national record check.
Got it.
See what?
There's lots of Jimmy Whites, but we finally developed one that's probably the correct one.
You gotta be kidding me. This guy does 14 years in the Mississippi State Penitentiary for the stabbing murder of an elderly woman.
Jimmy not only knows how to use a knife, he's used one in the past, and he is paroled into the custody of his sister, who is Maria Montoya's neighbor. We're investigating the murder of Maria Montoya. She has told her family members that she's afraid of a neighbor named Jimmy White, and he's now the focus of my case.
Incredible. It's the exact same MO as this case, and this can't be a coincidence.
This person has already been convicted of murder in Mississippi, and the victim in that case was an elderly woman who was stabbed in the throat. Very eerily similar to what we have right here.
All right, now, lady, give me some money.
I'm not gonna give you any money. I still got a load in there.
At the time of that crime, Jimmy White was 19 years old.
Look, I just did you a solid, so you're gonna pay up.
An elderly woman had promised him money if he would carry her laundry home for her.
I never promised you anything, and I'm not gonna give you a dime.
You're gonna give me something, okay? What?
Oh my...
Get this. Guy walks away from a dead body with $1.
He was a violent person. And by all accounts, Jimmy was very close to the line that is drawn between one who has a normal intellect and one who is developmentally disabled.
He reacts out of violence. I will take what you have, even if it's only $1. Don't do what I want, I will take your life.
Kenda is sure he has his man, and realizes there is someone in this case who can prove it.
So little girl says, a bad man hurt my Nona. How does she know there's a bad man?
She looked right at him.
Let's go get her in here.
Right.
That afternoon, Kenda looks on while a professional counselor speaks with 6-year-old Monica Montoya.
It is always difficult when you have to question a child involving a traumatic event. We have sworn officers who go to specialized training on how to talk to juvenile victims.
Monica, hi, I'm Betty. I heard that you like to draw.
Yeah, I do.
Well, guess what? So do I. And look at all the crayons I brought you. Look at all the different colors.
Part of the questioning of Monica was to talk about what happened when she got to her Nona's house. And I think just about any child with a piece of paper and crayons can find themselves a little bit more at ease with the person that gave it to them. That's the bridge.
It helps them connect to the incident. They're drawing it, they're thinking about it, they're focused. It's part of the event they just saw. It can be very effective.
Your mommy told me you saw a bad man hurt Nona.
Yes.
I bet that was scary.
She becomes a little less nervous and a little more discussing with them what she saw of what happened at her grandmother's apartment.
Monica, what did the bad man do?
He hit my Nona with a knife. No, I want to watch a video.
She sees the door of the apartment is open.
Monica described her great-grandmother on the floor.
And a man comes out of the bedroom. She says he has a bloody knife in his hand.
Had you ever seen the bad man before?
Yes, he lives near my Nona.
She told police that she saw the mean man with the orange shirt and a knife in his hands.
Get out of here, kid!
And he yelled at her to get out. And so she ran, and she ran home to her mother.
Can you show me your drawing? Who's that?
That's the bad man.
After listening to Monica's story, the counselor has only one more question to ask.
Monica, can you show me the bad man in this picture?
They construct a photo lineup of 6 individuals, one of whom is Jimmy White's picture taken from his police record.
Him.
The last time she saw him, he had a bloody knife in his hand. But her reaction is the same.
Thank you, Monica.
That's 100% confirmed identification of a suspect, and it's none other than Jimmy White.
At this point, we have enough evidence to obtain a search and arrest warrant for our suspect.
Police, open up! Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Step out here. Step out.
What's going on? You're under arrest for murder. Coffin?
I didn't do anything.
He's immediately handcuffed and placed into custody.
I go in with my people, and we conduct a search.
The search reveals a treasure trove of physical evidence.
Look at this. Bloody clothes.
I find an orange t-shirt on the floor of the closet with dried blood on it. I find black pants with blood on them.
I got something else.
We find the watch that belongs to the victim. We find the pearls that belong to the victim.
Later that day, Kenda returns to police headquarters to interrogate Jimmy White.
Jimmy, we already know that you killed Maria Montoya. Now, if you confessed, maybe the judge won't send you to the chair.
I won't tell on myself. I want a lawyer.
That's a very telling statement. I won't tell on myself. What are you going to tell me, Jimmy? That you killed this woman? Because you'd be telling it on yourself now, wouldn't you?
You're not telling on yourself, you're just telling your side of the story. Only once I leave, I can't help you.
Give me a lawyer.
Good luck with that.
Despite Jimmy's refusal to cooperate, Kenda believes he can piece together what happened to Maria Montoya on the afternoon of June 25th.
My experience tells me this. Jimmy goes over to Maria's apartment once again, as he had just done many times in the past.
What, Jimmy?
I need some money.
I don't have any money.
She kept him at bay by giving him change every now and then. What was unusual is when she said, "Not this time."
I see how you living in here.
Money's tight for her, just like it is for everybody else, and she puts her foot down and says no.
Enough. I'm not giving you any more money.
But he's not used to being told no. He doesn't handle it well.
I'm not giving you any more. I don't have any money to
You
give
ain't gave me enough.
He steps into her apartment, becomes more demanding of her.
Jimmy, you need to get out of my house right now.
And she retreats from him because she's afraid of him.
That's it. I'm calling the police.
As Maria heads into the bedroom to call police, Jimmy enters the kitchen and grabs the carving knife off the counter.
Told you, I need money.
You won't give me what I want? I'm going to take your life. He stabs her in the throat as he has done before. He takes her purse, he looks in her jewelry box and takes a couple of things. And as he's leaving, he's looking at a 6-year-old kid who's standing in the middle of the room.
Get out of here, kid.
She ran, and she saved her life, running away. If she'd have kept standing there, he'd have stabbed her in the throat.
Jimmy White pleads guilty to second-degree murder, aggravated robbery, and burglary in exchange for a sentence of 89 years.
The physical evidence is overwhelming. The judge, when sentencing occurs, decides that Jimmy White can never again see the light of day.
But the wounds Jimmy White left behind may never fully heal.
You cannot unsee extreme violence. They will remember their grandmother's moment of terror and the act of dying for the rest of their days.
Coming up, when an alleged murder becomes personal, Kenda is determined to get to the truth.
You knew what you were getting into. You're through.
As somebody I know pretty well, and here he is with a single entry gunshot wound to his right temple.
It's a hectic day at the Colorado Springs Police Department. And as head of the Major Crimes Unit, Lieutenant Joe Kenda must navigate the chaos.
Hey, Davis, you come in here?
Yeah, what's going on?
Can you get to the DA's office before lunch and then come right back, because I'm working on 2 other case files right now.
You got it, LT.
It is a common thing in my line of work that you are often dragged in several different directions at the same time.
Going for Kenda?
Which is frustrating to me.
Go for Kenda.
Hey, Lieutenant, I got a victim over here, possible suicide. I'd like you to take a look.
I'm pursuing a criminal matter, and somebody wants me to look at a suicide.
Steve, I'm right in the thick of working this double homicide with JD right now. I really don't have time for a suicide.
I really think you need to see this. Can you come by the King's Arms Apartments?
Now, generally, when that's being asked of me, there's something that this detective is distressed about.
All right, I'll be right there.
"20 minutes later, Kenda arrives and is met by Detective Steve Wood.
So what do we got?
Neighbors reported hearing the shot. The victim is male, approximately 40 years old. Gunshot wound, close range to the right temple. Suicide note on the nightstand.
Okay, it's your typical suicide. Why do you need me?
Well, here's the thing. We got a suicide with no gun.
Excuse me? If this man shot himself, where is his gun?
No gun? All right, let me take a look.
If you shoot yourself in the temple, you are instantly dead. There is no aftermath of that allows you to do anything with this gun. If there's no gun, then somebody else did. So now maybe we have a homicide, which is why my detective is concerned.
Here he is. He didn't want to move the body until the coroner arrived.
When I first looked at him, I looked at him casually. That's what I do every day. But then I looked again, and I thought, oh, no.
What's the matter?
I know him. It's my dentist.
What? You're kidding, right?
Oh, that's him.
He's Dr. Dennis Rivington. He has a partner. They have a practice off of Garden of God's Road. My wife and I and my children have gone there for some time.
Hey, Joe. If you'd lay off the sweets, I wouldn't have to see you as often.
Well, thanks, Doc.
Just kidding. What's good in there? But I'll see you in 6 months?
I appreciate it.
Lately, I've been seeing his partner more than I've seen Dr. Rivington. And here he is, dead on a bed.
Well, what do you know about him?
Right.
I knew he was married and had children. The practice appeared to be extremely successful. It was always very busy every time I was there.
I'm sorry to say, I really don't know much more about him.
Well, now we're in a position of needing to know everything about him. It's awkward. That's all right. Well, now we get back to business.
Dr. Rivington, what do we have here?
The only fact we know at this moment is our man is dead from a gunshot wound to the head administered by someone.
Dr. Rivington has a single gunshot wound on the right side of his head in the temple area. Very classic location for gunshot wounds that are suicide.
There was no exit wound. So that typically would indicate that it was probably a hollow point bullet, because by design, they're intended to sort of mushroom out once they've penetrated a surface.
You said there was a suicide note?
Yeah, not too detailed. Typical stuff. I can't go on like this. Please forgive me.
This feels like it is a suicide, but I often say to my detectives, don't tell me what you think, tell me what you can prove. I only care about what you can prove.
We checked all the windows. There's no signs of forced entry.
All right, thank you. Now, if someone did kill him, the doctor would have had to let him in. So it'd probably be somebody that he knew.
Beyond the missing gun, the next biggest clue is the apartment itself.
You said he lived here? Where's all the furniture?
Records indicate that Dennis Rivington signed the lease. But why would a successful dentist be in need of an empty apartment?
Not much of anything in here except a couple of beers and a half-eaten pizza.
Yeah, the cupboards are all bare as well.
What's going on in this person's life? Did he get an apartment because he needed a private place that nobody else would know about?
Maybe a secret apartment?
Spurned lover, jealous wife, jealous husband.
Is this a location for a mistress to maybe move into so he can come visit her with no one's knowledge?
Dennis, you can't just walk away from me like that. I'm a part of your life. I'm not going to just be ignored.
You knew what you were getting into. We're over.
We're through.
In theory, it could have been that somebody puts a gun to his head and pulls the trigger.
Kenda considers the possibility that Dr. Rivington's suicide was staged.
And if someone, in fact, is trying to stage a fake suicide, we have seen notes that were fabricated by a suspect.
So, what do you want to do?
Right now, we're going to treat it as a homicide investigation. Make sure that the coroner doesn't move the body yet.
Okay. Where are you going?
Well, if he was having an affair, somebody would know. It's not his wife. His office isn't too far from here. I'm going to talk to his dental partner.
Okay.
Now I'm focused on this because I want to find out what happened to my dentist. And we're going to do that, and we're going to do it right now. We're investigating the death of Dr. Rivington, my dentist, and our mission now is to find out how and why and what. And the best place to do that is his office, where his partner is working as we speak.
At Dr. Rivington's office,
hi, Dolores.
Kenda is greeted by a familiar face.
Oh, hello, Joe. I don't see you down for an appointment today.
I know today's a little different. I need to speak with Dr. Taylor immediately.
Okay, yeah, go ahead then.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe, what's going on? Dolores said you needed to see me right away.
I immediately tell him. I learned a long time ago, a sharp knife cuts clean.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Dennis was found dead in an apartment on Vickers Drive.
Oh, my God, what happened?
Well, there's a suicide note, but there's some circumstances questioning that. Can you tell me about him? Is there any reason why he'd be keeping secrets? A girlfriend? What's going on with him?
No, I mean, nothing like that. Dennis was a great husband.
He launched into this explanation of how he'd been covering for him. Dr. Rivington recently suffered a stroke. It was mild, but it interfered with his motor skills, and he couldn't actually use his hands as effectively as he needed to as a dentist.
It took him out for a while, but after 18 months, his workman's comp was starting to run out. I covered for him the best that I could.
What do you do for money?
Well, that's the thing.
He reports that Dr. Rivington made some investments that turned out to be bad investments, so he was in dire financial straits. His wife was extremely distressed about this.
They were about to lose the house. He had to go into foreclosure.
Typically, you do find that financial problems can become the foundation for marital problems.
And apparently, they were going through a divorce proceeding, forcing him to rent an apartment.
And it was just spiraling out of control.
Well, thank you, Dr. Taylor. I'm starting to see the full picture of what was going on.
Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help.
This has all made me comfortable with the facts and circumstances surrounding Dr. Rivington. There's no longer any possibility of suspects. It's most likely him. So now the question is, where is the gun?
Back at the apartment, Kenda brings his investigation into sharper focus.
Let's take a step back from this for a second. If the gun's not right next to him, there's got to be an answer. Wait a second, I think I got something. The paramedics worked on him, right?
Yes.
Pull up the shirt.
And there are electrode contact points in his chest.
Paramedics do what they can to save you. They're going to put those cardiac monitoring pads to make sure that the heart is no longer beating.
However, to pull up his shirt and put stickies on his chest, they have to get on the bed.
So he shot himself in the right temple, which means he's got to be right-handed. Put all your weight on the bed. Help me roll him up.
And we rotated his body upwardly from the right side.
Bingo.
And underneath the small of his back, there is the gun.
Kenda now believes he can piece together exactly what happened.
Dr. Rivington was extremely depressed over not only the financial losses of his investments, but the loss of his ability to act and work as a dentist.
Facing a divorce and bankruptcy, Dennis Rivington decided he had only one way out. But when the EMTs arrived, what would have been an obvious suicide took an unexpected turn.
The El Paso County Emergency Medical Protocol calls for running an EKG on a discovered remains to make certain there's no activity in the heart. When you kneel on a bed, the mattress compresses. If there's an object on that bed that's heavy, it's going to slide or it's going to move. When the EMTs knelt on the bed, the gun slid underneath him.
Looks like he's gone.
When the EMTs are off the bed, the mattress rises to its normal level. No one can see the gun. It's completely underneath his body.
Let's go.
You know, one thing I learned in the course of the investigations I did is you never give up on something until you have been able to search every possible square inch of the space you think is involved.
While the mystery of Dr. Dennis Rivington's death has been solved, many questions will forever remain unanswered.
The act of self-destruction is unreasonable. If you continue to look for a reason in that, you will never find it, and you will be destroyed by the search. Be sorry for the person. Remember them as they were, not as they were when they died, and you'll be much better off.
It was a rainy November night in Chicago, 1998, when the first call came in, frantic and breathless, a voice shaking over the crackling lines, reporting a young woman missing, last seen leaving a dimly lit jazz club in River North. Hair damp from the drizzle, coat clutched tight against the chill, eyes wide with a mix of hope and fatigue. A stranger's shadow trailing her steps, unnoticed by anyone, unnoticed until now. A haunting absence that would echo through the city for decades. Leaving. Friends and family grasping at fragments of memory, faces blurred by time, names whispered in panic and despair. The girl's apartment untouched, the kettle still warm on the stove. A half-finished note resting on the counter. Something about meeting someone new, someone dangerous, a casual mention of plans that would never materialize, and the detective on the line scribbling down every frantic detail, heart sinking with the premonition of a nightmare just beginning. The streets slick with rain, and neon reflections, every puddle a mirror of fear, every alleyway a potential hiding place, every horn a scream that could go unheard. As the city settled into uneasy sleep, oblivious to the unseen predator weaving through shadows, patient and deliberate, leaving only the absence of a young woman behind, a void that would haunt Chicago's pulse for years. The initial investigation unfolded like a map of dead ends and faded leads, canvassing neighbors who remembered nothing, taxi drivers who passed her by, a bartender who vaguely recalled her laughter over the clink of glasses, the surveillance camera at the corner gas station capturing a blurry figure at 11:47 p.m. Tall, coat collar pulled high, hands stuffed into pockets, disappearing into the night as if swallowed by the city itself. No fingerprints, no witnesses willing to speak, no ransom. Note, no motive clear, just the eerie silence of someone erased from existence. A story that should have had a beginning and an end, but instead only offered questions, haunting and unrelenting. Family posters went up in shop windows, flyers tucked under windshield wipers, the girl's photo printed in black and white, eyes staring into eternity, lips slightly parted, hair cascading like a dark river, and still, the calls came in from strangers claiming to have seen her, a blurred figure in the distance, a silhouette on the train platform, the reports always fading into nothing, leaving behind only frustration and grief, a mosaic of possibilities with no truth to anchor them. The city, murmuring of urban legends, of vanished souls, of doors that open and close with no one there, and detectives walking the streets, night after night, hoping to catch the reflection of the truth in a passing window, in a fleeting shadow. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and the cold case file thickened with evidence that led nowhere. Forensic reports noting fibers from an unknown source. A strand of hair found near the edge of the park, blood inconclusive. Analysis stalled by technological limits of the era. witness statements conflicting and unreliable, the clock ticking relentlessly. A reminder that time was as much an enemy as the perpetrator. Fading memories, lost details, the slow erosion of hope, neighbors moving on, new faces replacing old. But in the hearts of those who loved her, the ache remained, an unhealed wound, a question mark suspended in air like a hovering shadow, unyielding, unrelenting, mocking. Police precincts rotated officers through the case, each bringing a spark of energy, a theory, a hunch, only for it to dissolve in frustration. A puzzle with pieces that did not fit, a haunting refrain of cold leads, of paths that ended abruptly, of a killer who had disappeared into the folds of the city, leaving behind only silence and sorrow, and the girl's name repeated in whispers at family dinners, at high school reunions, at neighborhood block parties, a ghost story with no ghost, a tragedy suspended in time. The neighborhood where she disappeared had changed little in its architecture, but life carried on relentlessly, unaware or uncaring of the vacuum left by a missing girl, buildings breathing stories of commerce and crime, graffiti whispering warnings to the unwary, streetlights flickering like nervous eyes, puddles reflecting both neon and shadows, and somewhere in this urban landscape, a figure remained unnoticed, a perpetrator living a parallel life, confident that the memory of that night would fade, confident that cold cases like hers would become statistics, just another file on a shelf, until decades later, when technology and chance would collide, and the veneer of safety in the city would be pierced by revelation, by the shattering of silence, by the truth clawing its way back into the open. Inside the detective's office, photographs lined the walls, maps with pins marking sightings, telephone logs with numbers circled in red, each a thread in a tangled web that led nowhere, desks littered with coffee cups cold and abandoned, evidence bags stacked high like monuments to frustration, a whiteboard scrawled with dates, names, inconsistencies, and the mantra repeated by investigators. She deserves an answer. We cannot forget her. The words etched into memory, a pledge that time would not erase, a commitment that every stone would be overturned, every shadow scrutinized, every lead pursued, even when the leads had long gone cold, even when hope had dimmed, even when the city had moved on, believing the past was irretrievable. Witness interviews offered fragments. A man recalling a car parked too long on a side street, a woman remembering footsteps echoing in a hallway, a teenager glimpsing a figure crouched in the shadows, their memories hazy, unreliable, distorted by fear or imagination, but each a spark that refused to die, each a glimmer of potential truth, a breadcrumb on a trail that seemed endless, winding, twisting back upon itself, impossible to follow without getting lost, yet compelling enough to keep. Investigators awake at night, eyes fixed on screens, fingers tapping keys, trying to piece together a timeline from uncertainty, to breathe life into the silence of a girl whose laughter had been stolen by fate, a laughter that once filled rooms and streets with warmth, now replaced by the void, the echo, the cold. The media had caught wind of the case early, front-page stories plastered with missing person photos, phrases like mysterious disappearance and haunting unanswered questions. Talk shows debating every theory, radio hosts repeating every rumor, neighbors gossiping over fences, the city absorbing the story like a storm. Yet the storm passed and left nothing but wet streets and fading headlines, a public that moved on, consumed by new stories, new crises, leaving only the family and a cadre of determined detectives to haunt the memory of one young woman lost in time, as the city hummed oblivious above her absence, indifferent to the life cut short, to the questions unanswered, to the cold case that would remain a thorn in the side of law enforcement for decades. Forensic science in 1998 had limitations. DNA analysis was not as advanced, databases incomplete, fingerprints yielded no matches, the fibers could not be traced, the single footprint in the mud too smudged for certainty, the faint traces of blood inconclusive, a puzzle built on ambiguity, reliant on luck and chance, and yet detectives held on to small victories. A lead that hinted at a stranger, a vehicle registration that almost matched, a passerby who recalled a suspicious figure each time. Feeling the adrenaline spike, the hope rise, only to have it dissolve like mist at dawn, leaving despair heavier than before. a reminder that for every open case, there is a mountain of unknowns, and this one seemed insurmountable, relentless in its defiance, refusing resolution, demanding attention even as it exhausted those who pursued it. The girl's friends recounted the last night in fragments. Laughter mingled with cigarette smoke in a bar that smelled of stale beer and ambition. The band playing a slow jazz number, her coat too large, the streets shining from rain, the hum of traffic, the distant wail of sirens, the feeling of being watched that she mentioned once, then brushed off as paranoia, and finally, the image of her stepping into the night, umbrella closed, determination in her stride, the world unaware she would vanish, and in the years that followed, every street, every alley, every doorway she had passed became haunted ground, every passerby a potential witness to what had gone wrong, every shadow a potential harbor for the truth, lingering like a specter over a city that had long learned to look away. The detectives' notebooks overflowed with hypotheses, some plausible, others wild, but all pointing toward one reality. A calculated, patient predator, someone who knew the streets, someone who could disappear into the urban sprawl without a trace, someone who understood the limits of law enforcement at the time, someone who believed they could erase a life and carry on, someone who underestimated the persistence of memory, of family, of justice, of technology that would one day catch up. Each hypothesis weighed heavy on those who wrote them, a burden shared in silence, a responsibility carried alone, and every failed lead a reminder that evil often moves faster than the law. Yet the law eventually catches up. Years rolled on and Chicago moved with a mechanical rhythm, unaware that somewhere, the shadow of that November night still lingered, stretched across streets and rooftops, in alleys slick with rain and grime, in the hum of the elevated train rattling overhead, and inside precincts, the file on the missing girl grew thicker, yellowed pages brittle, staples rusted, sticky notes curling, each mark a testament to failed leads, each photograph a memory frozen in terror, a young woman whose presence had once been tangible now compressed into a collection of glossy images, police codes, and heartbeats lost to time. Detectives came and went, promotions and retirements carving paths through the case, leaving behind names that future officers would read aloud with reverence, tracing the steps of colleagues who had stared into shadows too long and felt the city's pulse tighten around their own. Technology advanced, the world moving faster, but the evidence stayed rooted in 1998, a time capsule of uncertainty, a moment before DNA databases expanded, before cell phone records could map movements with precision, before street cameras multiplied like silent witnesses. Late nights became ritual, the hum of fluorescent lights above desks, the whir of a printer spitting out fingerprints, evidence bags rattling with coins, buttons, hair samples, fibers, each holding a potential story, each whispering secrets that could not yet be decoded. The detectives pored over these items, magnifying glass in hand, tweezers poised, hearts straining for connection, for pattern, for anything to pierce the fog. But the city swallowed their efforts with indifference, streets humming with life, bars and diners opening and closing, children's laughter bouncing off brick walls while they remained anchored to absence. The quiet rage of a cold case festering like an open wound in the memory of those who refused to forget. A man surfaced in reports. Someone seen near the jazz club the night she vanished. A figure whose description wavered with every retelling, tall, stocky, a hat pulled low, coat collar turned up. But by the time detectives tracked the lead, he was gone, moved, vanished into another neighborhood or another state, leaving behind only questions and the faint scent of tobacco and rain. The witnesses were never consistent, some frightened into silence, others exaggerating, and yet every mention of the figure electrified the investigation, sparking late-night debates over maps and timelines, trying to reconcile stories with physical evidence. Each attempt a dagger of hope and despair twisting simultaneously, keeping detectives awake, tracing sidewalks and alleyways, replaying conversations in their minds, wondering what had gone wrong, what had been missed. In the community, the missing girl's name had become part of local lore, a whispered cautionary tale. Don't walk alone, don't take a shortcut, beware the shadows. Parents clutched their children tighter at night, the fear of the unknown etched into every step, a reminder that evil had no timetable, that it could vanish and strike again without warning, that the city was a labyrinth for those with intent to harm. Bars where she had been seen, sidewalks she had walked, shops she had frequented. All became charged with meaning, each brick and street lamp a marker of memory, as if the urban landscape itself held fragments of the truth, waiting for someone patient enough, determined enough, to piece them together. The investigation took unusual turns. Tips from psychics, a man claiming to channel the girl's spirit, anonymous letters sent to the police claiming knowledge of the crime, each one dissected with cautious skepticism, every claim verified against timelines, alibis, and known facts. Some tips proved dead ends, others led to streets lined with shadows and false hope, but detectives persevered, following the faintest scent of truth through the maze of misinformation and deceit, understanding that in cases like this, perseverance was not just a virtue. It was the only bridge across the gulf of uncertainty. Months bled into years. Chicago winter fell repeatedly over the missing girl's absence, snow blanketing streets she had once walked, footprints of pedestrians obliterated by wind and time. The city glowing under holiday lights that mocked the darkness of the unresolved case. Detectives wearing coats heavier than the chill in the air, hands numb on steering wheels, scanning streets for a face that would never appear. Crime scene photos were studied obsessively, grainy images enlarged in darkened offices, shadows examined for detail, reflections checked for angles, the tiniest inconsistencies scrutinized, patterns sought where none seemed to exist, a mental cartography of absence being drawn across years, decades even, a psychological map of human obsession meeting human evil. In 2002, an anonymous call came, trembling, urgent, claiming to know who had taken her, naming a person long overlooked in initial investigations. Detectives chased the lead for months, travel across counties, interviews conducted in coffee shops and motel rooms, surveillance and stakeouts, days that melted into nights, a rhythm of hope and disappointment, and still, the suspect could not be pinned, always a step ahead, always clever. A ghost in the machinery of law enforcement, exploiting the limitations of the time, the gaps in memory, the fallibility of human observation, leaving behind only whispers, fleeting glances, footprints that dissolved into nothing, proof that patience and cunning often outlasted investigation itself. The girl's parents aged visibly, hair graying, faces etched with lines that mapped grief, disbelief, and a slow-burning anger. Their love unbroken. Their hope battered but enduring, attending every community meeting, distributing flyers, offering rewards, pleading with authorities, urging the public to come forward, to remember, to speak, yet the silence persisted. Neighbors who once rallied around them drifted away, the noise of everyday life drowning out the memory of what had been lost. But the parents remained, stubborn as stone, standing at vigils, lighting candles, leaving bouquets at corners she had passed, and detectives took heart from this dedication. A reminder that time did not diminish truth, that the human spirit would not relinquish its pursuit, that eventually, cracks in the armor of secrecy would appear. Forensic breakthroughs in the mid-2000s offered glimmers of possibility. DNA analysis advanced, cold storage of evidence was better understood. Profiles could now be compared across state lines, databases growing exponentially, every sample in the file reassessed with new technology, every hair, fiber, and blood trace given a second chance at speaking, a whisper of the past reaching into the present, promising a reckoning. Detectives revisited every lead, old witness statements cross-referenced, alibis reconsidered, timelines recalculated. A meticulous reconstruction of a night that had long disappeared into shadow, and slowly, patterns began to emerge, fragile at first, easily shattered, but present nonetheless, the skeleton key to unlock decades of silence. It was in the smallest details that the breakthrough began. A fiber from an old jacket, a hair found on a railing, a vehicle partially matching the description provided by that bartender 25 years ago, small threads woven into the fabric of a larger tapestry, unnoticed at the time, now screaming with significance, a reminder that even in long-forgotten files, the truth waits patiently, dormant but insistent, and when the right mind examines it, connections appear, seemingly miraculous, yet entirely logical in retrospect. Detectives began to coordinate across jurisdictions, sharing data with neighboring states, checking old arrest records, reviewing old suspects, and suddenly, the case gained momentum. The invisible hand that had held it dormant releasing, letting the investigation accelerate, building pressure, heat, energy. A kinetic force of determination racing toward a moment that had seemed impossible, a moment when the shadow that had haunted a city would finally be confronted. The stolen life. Acknowledged, the question of justice rising above the static of decades. In the city, residents sensed a shift, a tension in the air, a collective anticipation, rumors spreading like wildfire. Have you heard? The cold case might finally be solved. Whispered in diners, on buses, in laundromats. A community holding its breath. The memory of a missing girl living again in conversations. A shared anxiety that had nothing to do with crime in general and everything to do with one life erased. And one mystery about to be unraveled. A story of patience, obsession, evil, and hope converging in a way few believed possible, proving that time does not always protect those who hide in darkness. That truth has a stubborn persistence, and that eventually, shadows must confront the light. By 2010, the case had become a specter within the precinct, folders stacked like tombstones on dusty shelves, fluorescent lights flickering above, the hum of computers processing old evidence files, the smell of coffee and ink lingering in the air, a ghostly presence of decades-old frustration. Detectives had learned every alley, every street, every corner she had walked, etched into memory like a second city layered atop the first, a cartography of absence, and they chased phantom sightings, late-night calls from strangers claiming to recognize her, the thrill of possibility tempered by years of disappointment. Technology offered hope, enhanced fingerprint scanning, more sophisticated DNA testing, digital databases connecting distant crimes. But every new lead required patience, precision, and the ability to separate signal from noise, to discern reality from memory distorted by fear, time, and imagination. It was a tip from a retired officer, someone who had never let go of the case, who mentioned a detail forgotten, a car parked near the jazz club that had been overlooked, a partial plate number, a detail so small it had vanished in the chaos of the initial investigation that reignited interest. Detectives pounced, running records through DMV databases, cross-referencing arrests, ownership changes, expired registrations, suddenly finding a trail long buried in bureaucracy, and each connection felt like a spark, illuminating fragments of a night-long dark, each clue a pulse in the silent body of the case. They discovered a man with a history of minor assaults, a personality profile that matched behaviors described by neighbors, and the pieces began to shift. The neighborhood itself seemed to hold its breath as investigators began surveillance on the suspect, a quiet man who had lived under the radar for decades, his presence unremarkable to casual observers, yet meticulously documented by detectives who mapped his routines, noting patterns in grocery trips, bank visits, vehicle movements, and social connections, each action dissected, each step a potential window into the mind of someone who had remained invisible for too long. Officers watched in cold rain, binoculars pressed to eyes, breath fogging in the night air, heartbeats synchronized to the rhythm of passing footsteps, waiting, patient, aware that one misstep could allow him to vanish again into anonymity. Witnesses were re-interviewed, old memories excavated, fragments of the past dredged from minds clouded with years, and suddenly, the suspect's presence appeared in multiple locations on the night of the disappearance. Phone records matched his movements, gas receipts placed him near familiar streets, his vehicle seen near the jazz club that fateful night, patterns aligning with uncanny precision, and the detectives felt the tension rise, the weight of decades of frustration coalescing into a tangible target. The city itself seemed to lean in, streetlights flickering like nervous eyes, rain-slicked streets glistening under the hum of headlights, as if bearing witness to the final act of a story that had been waiting to unfold for 25 years. Evidence was revisited in the lab. Fibers, hair, footprints, clothing, each element re-examined under the light of modern technology. Every detail scrutinized with new analytical methods, resulting in DNA matches that had been impossible in 1998. A single hair found on the railing of a back alley, a fiber from his coat on a bench near her last known location, a partial fingerprint finally linked to his previous arrests. All converged to form a web that could no longer be ignored. The cold case file, once a monument to frustration, had transformed into a tapestry of connection, each thread a testament to persistence, patience, and the refusal of memory and justice to remain dormant. The detectives moved cautiously but decisively, coordinating with federal and state agencies to confirm the identity and pattern of the suspect. They reviewed court records, old misdemeanors, and encounters with law enforcement, connecting dots across decades, each one forming a narrative previously invisible. Their notes were meticulous, timelines reconstructed, witness statements re-examined, everything pointing to a single conclusion. The predator who had vanished into the night of 1998 had lived quietly among them, invisible, underestimated, and confident in his immunity. Yet even he could not escape the inevitable pressure of persistent investigation, the weight of evidence steadily closing around him like a tightening vice. The operation to apprehend him was calculated, silent, almost cinematic. Plainclothes officers positioned strategically around his apartment, surveillance vehicles stationed in unassuming locations, every angle covered, every possible escape route accounted for. It was late evening when the moment arrived, shadows stretching along streets wet with rain, wind carrying the faint echo of a city moving on oblivious to its history. They watched him leave his building, a figure seemingly ordinary, a man unremarkable to casual observers, unaware of the web that had been spun around him for years, oblivious to the attention focused on each step, each breath. A subtle gesture, the turn of his head, the rhythm of his walk, the manner in which he clutched his coat. Small signals that had become second nature to officers trained to notice anomalies. As he approached his car, the team moved in, silent but deliberate, the crackle of radios the only sound breaking the tension. He froze, realizing too late that the past had caught up to him, decades of shadows and evasion rendered irrelevant by the precision and persistence of law enforcement. Hands raised, a faint smirk as if to test whether this was real, then compliance, the weight of inevitability settling on his shoulders as he was escorted into a vehicle. A final chapter in a narrative that had haunted the city for a quarter of a century. News of the arrest spread like wildfire through Chicago. Social media posts, television broadcasts, newspapers, all carrying the shocking revelation. The 1998 cold case finally solved. The killer apprehended, justice, long delayed, now delivered. Community members expressed disbelief, relief, anger, closure intermingled with lingering grief. The girl's family, long resigned to uncertainty, were flooded with emotion, tears of sorrow and triumph. The decades of anxiety, fear, and unanswered questions crystallized into a moment of clarity, though the shadow of lost years remained, a reminder that justice, though eventual, cannot fully erase the toll of absence. Investigators continued to piece together the night of her disappearance with precision, reconstructing his movements, confirming the sequence of events, identifying witnesses who had been overlooked, and clarifying the timeline with the benefit of hindsight and modern forensic capability. What had been impossible to verify in 1998 became indisputable, every fragment of evidence lining up with his confession, every fiber, hair, and footprint a marker in a story that had long seemed unsolvable. The city watched, rapt, as decades of mystery unraveled before them, proof that patience, persistence, and the inexorable march of justice could pierce even the thickest veil of time and secrecy. The emotional aftermath was intense. News anchors described the arrest with the cadence of breaking news. Community forums discussed the implications. Local residents recounted their memories of the time, overlaying the past with the present. The girl's parents, though aged and changed, felt a measure of peace, a validation of years of vigilance and hope, a closure they had feared would never arrive. Detectives reflected quietly in offices, alone with their memories of frustration, late nights, and dead ends, acknowledging that the human capacity for patience, combined with technological advancement and sheer determination, had finally succeeded where decades of uncertainty had failed. Yet even with the arrest, the case left lingering shadows. The trauma of the vanished years could not be undone, the stolen time irretrievable, and the city, though relieved, remained haunted by the knowledge of how easily someone could vanish, how deeply a cold case could embed itself into the collective consciousness, how a single act of evil could ripple through families, neighborhoods, and generations, leaving scars invisible yet palpable. The story of 1998 became a cautionary tale, a lesson in vigilance, justice, and the relentless pursuit of truth, reminding all who heard it that even the darkest corners of a city are not beyond reach, that persistence can illuminate shadows, and that time, though it may obscure, cannot indefinitely shield those who hide from accountability. The night of the arrest had ended, but the story was far from over. Inside the precinct, lights burned late into the early hours, officers moving methodically through a mountain of paperwork, photographing evidence again, cataloging items for the court, rechecking timelines, and replaying interviews that spanned decades. The suspect, now in custody, sat silently in a sterile holding cell, the faint hum of fluorescent lights above blending with the distant rumble of the city, his eyes steady yet calculating, a mask that betrayed nothing yet hinted at the lifetime of secrets and darkness contained within. He had spent 25 years hidden in plain sight, a phantom moving between the mundane routines of the living and the sinister impulses that had once stolen a young woman from a city street. And now, the net had closed, the trap sprung, and the past had finally caught up with him. Interrogation rooms became arenas of psychological warfare. Detectives entered in shifts, one after another, their questions precise, relentless, probing not only for facts but for cracks in his composure, a flicker of guilt, a sliver of humanity exposed under pressure. The man's answers were measured, sparse, calculated, but the weight of accumulated evidence began to press upon him. Each photo, each fiber, each DNA match a reminder that the night of 1998 could no longer be rewritten, that the city had kept its memory alive in ways he had never anticipated. He spoke in monotones, voices quiet but edged with tension, revealing details previously unknown, confirming what was already suspected. Each sentence a nail driven into the coffin of decades-long anonymity, each revelation peeling back layers of darkness that had been concealed beneath ordinary life. The detectives reconstructed the night with him, the path she had taken, the shadows he had exploited, the moments of vulnerability he had seized, and the city's memory of that November evening sharpened into clarity. They walked through maps, charts, and photographs, overlaying his statements with evidence. And suddenly the city itself seemed to coalesce around the narrative, streets, alleys, sidewalks, and park benches aligning with terrifying precision to tell the story of a crime that had long haunted the hearts of those left behind. Every fragment, every overlooked detail, every fragment of witness testimony found its place, like pieces of a mosaic finally assembling into the image of a truth once obscured by time, neglect, and human error. The girl's family was summoned, and the reunion of truth and memory was electric, overwhelming. They listened as detectives recounted the movements of the man, the timeline of his actions, the locations visited, the evidence collected, the confessions elicited. Tears flowed freely, grief mingling with relief, sorrow colliding with vindication. Decades of unanswered questions finally finding answers. The city's pulse seemed to quicken with the news, neighbors speaking in hushed tones, friends recalling memories of the girl, the streets she had walked, the life she had lived briefly yet vibrantly, and the void her disappearance had left, now partially filled by the revelation of what had occurred and who had committed the act. As the story unfolded in court, the press descended, cameras flashing, microphones capturing every word, the narrative packaged for public consumption with the stark headlines. Chicago 1998 cold case solved. Killer finally caught after 25 years. Justice delayed but undeniable. The man's face, once unknown to the public, became a fixture on screens and in newspapers, a chilling reminder that evil can persist undetected for years, yet also a testament to persistence, patience, and the tireless work of law enforcement committed to truth. Community forums and panels discussed the implications, analyzing how he had remained unnoticed, how the case had survived decades of neglect, and how advancements in technology and the dogged determination of detectives had converged to deliver closure. Inside the courthouse, the suspect maintained a composed exterior, but subtle twitches betrayed the tension beneath. Prosecutors laid out the sequence of events with meticulous clarity, every date, time, and location reinforced with evidence and corroborated by witnesses. Photographs of the scene, enhanced images of fibers and footprints, and documentation of prior surveillance painted a picture so detailed it seemed as though the audience were walking the streets of 1998 themselves, sensing the rain, hearing the distant train, feeling the dread of an unknown predator stalking a young woman unaware of the danger closing in. The narrative was visceral, tangible, forcing the city to confront its past, its blind spots, and its resilience in the face of long-buried evil. The trial became more than a legal proceeding. It became a citywide catharsis, a confrontation with collective memory and trauma. Residents who had grown up in the neighborhoods involved revisited their own experiences, recalling nights when a shadow passed too close, a feeling of unease, a glance into darkness that never fully left them. Counselors and psychologists were consulted to assist families, not only the victims but those indirectly affected, neighbors who had been part of her life, and even officers who had carried the burden of an unresolved case. Each scar invisible yet present, each memory resurfacing with the intensity of the trial's revelations. The courtroom was saturated with tension, every statement, every piece of evidence a reminder that the passage of time does not erase impact, that evil, though patient, cannot escape justice indefinitely, and that the human need for closure and understanding is relentless and consuming. The detective team remained at the forefront, guiding the process, ensuring details were not lost, and protecting the integrity of the investigation. They had spent years chasing shadows, deciphering whispers, piecing together fragments that initially seemed meaningless, and now those fragments had converged into an unbroken narrative. They had borne the weight of failure, disappointment, and public scrutiny, and now the culmination of decades of work unfolded before them, a testament to their unwavering dedication, an affirmation that persistence, intelligence, and moral rigor could overcome even the most entrenched darkness. Outside the courthouse, the city absorbed the shockwaves of revelation. Streets buzzed with commentary, social media erupted with reactions, forums dissected every facet of the case, news channels replayed footage of detectives, family members, and the suspect, and public fascination merged with horror. Conversations recounted the girl's final night in vivid detail, her laughter at the jazz club, the glow of neon reflecting in puddles, her coat damp from rain, her presence alive in memory, and the predator lurking unseen, a reminder of the fragility of safety and the enduring consequences of unpunished crimes. Families shared stories of their own fears, their own brushes with uncertainty, creating a tapestry of urban anxiety connected through decades of shared experience and renewed vigilance. Psychological analysis of the suspect revealed a chilling blend of patience, cunning, and remorseless calculation. Experts described his ability to blend seamlessly into ordinary life, the meticulous routines that allowed him to evade suspicion, and the cold detachment that permitted him to move without detection. The detectives absorbed these insights, integrating them into a broader understanding of criminal behavior, using the case as both closure and lesson, the girl's memory a touchstone for reform, training, and awareness, ensuring that her absence would contribute to the prevention of future tragedies. In neighborhoods where she had lived and walked, memorials were quietly erected. Flowers, candles, photographs, and handwritten notes appeared at street corners, in front of buildings, and near the jazz club she had frequented, small but potent symbols of remembrance, tribute, and acknowledgement. Residents revisited their own recollections, piecing together the mosaic of events that had long faded into shadow, recognizing the ways the city's physical and social landscape had changed and yet, in subtle ways, had preserved the memory of her absence, a persistent reminder that time does not erase significance, that even decades later, stories demand acknowledgement, and that the consequences of evil linger long after the act itself. Even after the arrest, the city felt the pulse of the unresolved past, the lingering shadows of streets and alleys where the girl had disappeared 25 years ago. Detectives returned repeatedly to the scene, under rain, snow, and the harsh glare of summer sun, retracing steps, analyzing asphalt cracks, footprints, and curbs that had long weathered over. Every lamp post, every curb, every sidewalk crack became a potential clue, a witness to the story that had eluded them for decades. Forensic teams combed the area again, armed with technologies that did not exist in 1998. Luminol for traces of blood invisible to the eye, fiber comparison under high-powered microscopes, digital reconstructions of the streets and angles from surveillance footage previously dismissed as useless. Each step revealed something overlooked, A microscopic thread in the fabric of a night long vanished from memory, and slowly, the city itself became a participant in reconstruction, guiding detectives through the choreography of darkness, rain, and fleeting shadows. The evidence accumulated, detailing his movements with precision. He had parked on an unlit street, retraced steps to avoid witnesses, exploited gaps in sightlines, manipulated the environment with knowledge of human behavior, anticipating hesitation, fear, distraction, and now each calculated maneuver could be recreated in meticulous detail. Officers walked the sidewalks at night, following trajectories, visualizing the route he had taken with her, reconstructing the subtle interactions that had gone unnoticed. A bus passing by, a car door opening, a pedestrian looking away. Every element placed them closer to understanding the predator's methodology, the cold and deliberate orchestration of a crime that had seemed random and unsolvable, revealing a mind organized around patience, manipulation, and absolute control. Witnesses who had been elusive for years were contacted again, now encouraged by the certainty that the perpetrator was caught. Some remembered new details, small anomalies that had been dismissed as irrelevant or forgotten. A muffled sound from an alley, a reflection in a puddle, a shadow that moved against the natural flow of the crowd. These fragments, when integrated into timelines and diagrams, revealed the complexity of his plan. Detectives realized the abduction had been executed with preparation, observation, and a chilling calm, the very ordinariness of the environment enabling the extraordinary crime, making the city itself an accomplice by providing anonymity, distraction, and opportunity. Interrogations progressed, uncovering psychological patterns previously hidden. The man spoke methodically, as though narrating someone else's life, detailing how he had monitored her for weeks, noted routines, and observed vulnerabilities. He described a neighborhood that had been silent, people absorbed in daily routines, unaware of a predator weaving through their midst, their complacency exploited. Detectives recorded every word, every pause, every subtle inflection, cataloging his demeanor, parsing truth from manipulation, recognizing the rare opportunity to access the mind of a criminal patient enough to evade detection for decades. The interviews became exercises in patience, tension, and controlled confrontation, each exchange charged with the power of revelation, bringing the cold case to life in the sterile interrogation room where decades of darkness met the unyielding light of scrutiny. Evidence from his past life was unearthed and analyzed for patterns. Minor offenses, forgotten complaints, and past altercations were re-examined for links to behavior consistent with the abduction. The detective team noticed correlations between his work locations, social habits, and proximity to victims, mapping a psychological landscape that revealed both opportunity and motive. Forensic analysis tied previously dismissed items, fibers from a coat, traces of soil, fingerprints on objects left untouched, to his daily routines, proving access and premeditation. The layers of seemingly unrelated activity across years suddenly converged into a coherent sequence, each layer confirming suspicions, each link reinforcing the inevitability of justice catching up. The community, still reeling from the arrest, watched as details emerged in newspapers, online forums, and broadcasts. People revisited their own memories of 1998, recognizing fleeting glances, unexplained observations, and moments of intuition now confirmed as accurate. Conversations over coffee and in classrooms shifted from speculation to comprehension, the air charged with shock, reflection, and an uneasy admiration for the persistence of detectives. The young woman's life, her movements, choices, laughter, and vulnerability became a living narrative again, reconstructed from fragments of memory, evidence, and confession. The city simultaneously reliving a tragedy and witnessing closure. Digital technology enabled forensic reconstruction of the night. Analysts enhanced surveillance footage, aligning timestamps and overlaying his movements with environmental data. Rain reflections, car headlights, and shadows were digitally recreated, reconstructing the rhythm of the streets, his approach, her last steps, and the manipulation of sight lines. Each frame reinforced understanding of his planning, his anticipation of witnesses, and the deliberate exploitation of darkness, creating a chilling tableau that combined cinematic clarity with forensic reality. The reconstruction became part of the trial, giving jurors, families, and the public an unprecedented view into a crime that had seemed unsolvable. As investigators sifted through every detail, the victim's final moments became clearer, her interactions, decisions, and awareness reconstructed with painstaking accuracy. Small gestures, the way she adjusted her coat, glanced over her shoulder, hesitated at a curb, assumed significance as markers in a chain of events orchestrated by a calculating mind. The detectives experienced a surreal alignment of memory and technology, empathy and analysis, recreating a night where every microsecond mattered, where fear and oblivion intersected, and where the predator's confidence had met the inexorable advance of time, persistence, and forensic innovation. The court case advanced, evidence presented methodically. Timelines overlaid on city maps, DNA sequences displayed on monitors, fibers magnified and color-coded, digital reconstructions illustrating shadows and sightlines, and witness statements compiled into cohesive narratives. The legal team argued with precision, highlighting the convergence of decades-old observations, physical evidence, and confession, proving the inevitability of responsibility. The audience witnessed the meticulous collapse of a carefully hidden life, the dismantling of years of assumed anonymity, and the stark revelation that a city's memories, persistence of investigation, and advancements in science had converged to unmask a predator whose existence had been a silent threat for a quarter-century. Even as the trial unfolded, emotional reverberations spread through the city. Families recalled their own unresolved fears, neighbors revisited old anxieties, and the young woman's memory became a symbol of vigilance and resilience. Memorials appeared on corners where she had walked, candles lit, flowers laid, notes left in quiet homage, signs that the absence she left was recognized and honored. These gestures, small but potent, reinforced the significance of justice delayed but achieved, the validation of grief, and the acknowledgement of the deep scars left by unresolved evil. Inside police offices, detectives reflected on the evolution of the case, on failures and breakthroughs, on the intersection of human intuition, technological advancement, and patient dedication. They understood that solving such a case required more than skill. It required persistence, imagination, empathy, and an unyielding commitment to uncovering the truth. No matter how long it took, no matter how cold the leads became, no matter how deep the shadows stretched across the city's streets. The story of 1998 was no longer a mystery but a demonstration of the capacity of law enforcement and community memory to bridge decades, to reconstruct reality from fragments, and to deliver justice that honored the life once stolen from their midst. Inside the high-security detention center, the man sat in a small, sterile cell, walls painted in muted gray, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the faint echo of distant footsteps and doors clanging reverberating through the hallways, a constant reminder that the world he had evaded for 25 years had finally enclosed him. He stared at the floor, eyes tracing cracks in the concrete, the rhythm of his breathing measured, controlled. The same calm detachment he had exhibited during interrogation now paired with a creeping awareness of permanence. Detectives visited daily, some questioning, some observing silently, watching for micro-expressions, subtle tics, or cracks in the composed facade. Every word, every pause, every gesture was catalogued, analyzed, cross-referenced with past statements, a psychological map being drawn of a mind that had remained hidden, patient, and calculating for a quarter-century. His confessions unfolded in layers, like peeling an onion, revealing chilling details of premeditation and calculation. He described monitoring her routines, the way she moved through the city, her habits, the paths she took, every interaction meticulously noted, stored, and later exploited. He spoke of anticipation, waiting for the perfect opportunity, analyzing human behavior, exploiting distraction, and the blind spots of a bustling city. Detectives listened with a mixture of horror and fascination, noting how methodical, almost clinical, his approach had been. He had observed, memorized, and acted with precision, demonstrating patience that defied comprehension, a mind that planned decades in advance with terrifying clarity. Meanwhile, the city continued to absorb the shockwaves of revelation. News cycles replayed footage of his arrest, court appearances, and the detailed reconstruction of the night she vanished. Social media erupted with commentary, threads analyzing the timeline, questioning how he had gone unnoticed, dissecting every possible missed clue. Local residents revisited memories, neighbors recalled fleeting observations, the slight glances, a figure seen lingering in an alley, a parked car suspiciously out of place. Each recollection, now verified by confession and forensic reconstruction, became part of the collective memory, a chilling reminder of how subtly evil can embed itself within ordinary life, how easily it can exploit inattention and routine. Psychologists called to assist in the trial provided insights into his mental state, examining the blend of cunning, patience, and detachment. They described a mind capable of compartmentalization, able to execute prolonged plans without detection, lacking empathy but acutely aware of human behavior and patterns. Detectives and prosecutors incorporated these assessments into their understanding, using them to anticipate testimony, interrogate effectively, and present a coherent narrative in court. The city watched, captivated by the intersection of science, psychology, and human tragedy, a public drawn into the mechanics of a crime that had remained unsolved for a generation, learning that darkness could persist in subtle, calculated forms. Family members attended hearings, their presence a constant reminder of the human cost of delayed justice. The mother's hands trembled as she held her daughter's photograph, the father's eyes fixed on every word, absorbing each confession with a mixture of relief and grief, understanding now what had happened but mourning the years of absence, the stolen moments, and the silence that had hung over them for decades. The community joined in solidarity, vigils held outside the courthouse, candles flickering against the night, notes left in quiet corners, collective recognition of a life interrupted, a narrative reclaimed, a city forced to confront the consequences of neglect, oversight, and the patience of a predator. Inside the cell, he described his meticulous approach to evading detection, the subtle manipulations, the exploitation of ordinary events, the understanding of human routines, and the exploitation of gaps in observation. He detailed the instruments used, the steps taken to avoid leaving forensic evidence, the way he had monitored law enforcement protocols, and the minor crimes that masked his movements, creating a facade of normality that had allowed him to move unnoticed for decades. Detectives recorded every detail, cross-referencing with evidence, verifying accounts, and constructing a timeline that finally aligned with forensic reconstructions, witness statements, and previously inexplicable observations. The narrative was methodical, terrifyingly precise, and exhaustive, a window into a mind both patient and relentless. The confession illuminated the psychological trauma left in the wake of his actions. Detectives realized that while evidence and technology had finally revealed the truth, the impact on human memory, perception, and community cohesion remained complex and enduring. Families lived with anxiety, neighbors remembered fear, and the city itself carried subtle scars, from the way streets were walked at night to the vigilance exercised in ordinary routines. The confession did not erase absence but reframed it, contextualized it, providing a narrative structure that transformed decades of uncertainty into a tangible story of crime, pursuit, and justice. Trial proceedings incorporated these confessions, aligning them with physical evidence, forensic reconstructions, and eyewitness testimony. Prosecutors presented a narrative meticulously constructed to demonstrate premeditation, methodical execution, and the sustained evasion of law enforcement. Charts, timelines, digital simulations, and photographic evidence illustrated the path of the predator and the sequence of events. The jury and public witnessing a complex orchestration of a crime previously deemed unsolvable. The courtroom itself became a stage for the convergence of decades, the interplay of memory, technology, and human persistence, and a demonstration of how diligence and scientific advancement can bridge the temporal gap of a cold case. Outside, the community continued to grapple with revelations. Residents reflected on their own vigilance, the subtle anomalies noticed in 1998 now validated, the importance of collective memory and attention, and the fragility of safety in urban life. Social media amplified these reflections, discussions emerging about urban security, early intervention, and the societal responsibility to recognize and report anomalies. The young woman's life, her absence, and the confession of her abductor became an educational narrative, as well as a cautionary tale, illustrating the intersection of crime, patience, and human vigilance. Detectives revisited old protocols, analyzing failures and successes, integrating lessons into contemporary practice, training new officers with the nuances of the case, emphasizing persistence, patience, and thoroughness. The cold case transformed into a living curriculum, teaching that even decades-old crimes require meticulous attention, cross-jurisdictional cooperation, and the integration of evolving technology. Every fiber, footprint, statement, and confession now served as instructional material, a guide for preventing future crimes and ensuring that patience, persistence, and vigilance remain central to law enforcement practice. As the suspect recounted details of his planning, he revealed an unsettling detachment from morality, viewing the city as a chessboard, the people within it as pawns, their routines and behaviors exploitable for his purposes. Detectives documented this cold rationality, comparing it to prior criminal behavior, assessing patterns that indicated foresight, patience, and calculated risk-taking. The confession offered rare insight into the mind of someone capable of committing a long unresolved abduction, exploiting human predictability, and maintaining anonymity over decades, a chilling case study in premeditated evil and sustained avoidance of accountability. At the same time, the detectives monitored the emotional aftermath on the victim's family. Counseling services were engaged, support networks mobilized, and every effort made to help the family process the shock of confession while reconciling it with the delayed justice they had endured. The mother frequently recounted memories of her daughter, her voice shaking but determined, her grief interwoven with relief, the recognition that while the years lost could not be restored, truth had finally emerged. The father attended proceedings with a quiet stoicism, absorbing every piece of information, his presence a stabilizing force for the community and the courtroom, his vigilance a testament to decades of endurance. The courthouse doors closed behind the flood of journalists, neighbors, and family members, the chatter of speculation replaced by the heavy silence of anticipation. Inside, the air seemed charged with decades of unresolved tension, every creak of the wooden floors, every shuffle of papers, echoing the weight of a city waiting for justice. The trial had become more than a legal proceeding. It was a reckoning, a confrontation with time itself, a decades-long dialogue between patience and evil, between memory and truth, and the courtroom became a stage for this high-stakes drama, each participant acutely aware of the gravity pressing down upon them. The defendant, once a ghost slipping through shadows, now sat restrained, hands folded, eyes scanning the room, calculating, calm yet subtly tense, aware of the attention, the judgment, the long-delayed confrontation with society itself. His demeanor was a mask, but the slightest shifts betrayed the undercurrent of anxiety, the recognition that the years of anonymity had dissolved, replaced by scrutiny, accountability, and the unyielding observation of detectives, jurors, and the public. Prosecutors began their opening statements, voices sharp, measured, replaying the narrative that had haunted Chicago for a quarter century. Every word meticulously chosen to remind the court of the stakes, the suffering, and the moral imperative of justice. They painted a vivid tableau. A young woman, her laughter echoing through the jazz club, unaware of the predator studying her from a distance. The streets glistening with November rain. The city alive yet oblivious, and the man navigating it with deliberate intent, exploiting human predictability, observation, and patience. Witnesses were called, their statements revisited with modern clarity, recalling small anomalies, fleeting glances, and details once dismissed, now framed within the context of confession and forensic reconstruction. Each account reinforced the timeline, each memory corroborated the sequence of events, and the courtroom absorbed the chilling precision of a crime meticulously planned and executed. Exhibits filled the room. Enhanced photographs of streets and alleys, magnified fibers, DNA samples visualized for jurors, digital reconstructions projecting shadows, angles, and sightlines onto screens. The city of 1998 was reconstructed before their eyes, a stage set for terror, a demonstration of control, calculation, and the cold efficiency of predation. Jurors leaned forward, absorbed, some swallowing hard, others exchanging glances that reflected shock and disbelief. The combination of human memory, scientific advancement, and confession producing a visceral impact that transcended the sterile air of the courtroom. Family members sat in silence, holding photographs, clutching one another, absorbing the narration of the night that had long haunted them. The mother's eyes glistened, tears threatening to spill. The father's jaw clenched, his fingers tapping a rhythm of restrained anxiety, each revelation slicing through decades of absence, grief, and uncertainty. Community members watched from galleries. Journalists recorded every word, the public absorbing the unfolding drama like a citywide collective memory being realigned. Every fact, confession, and reconstruction resonating as a testament to both human perseverance and the dark capacity for patience in criminal minds. Cross-examinations intensified, defense attorneys probing gaps, questioning methodology, attempting to cast doubt. Yet the weight of evidence, physical, testimonial, forensic, was unrelenting. Each fiber, hair, footprint, and digital reconstruction reinforced the narrative, bridging the decades with certainty. Detectives were recalled to clarify timelines, elaborate on procedural details, and explain the evolution of technology that had made the resolution possible. Their testimonies became a blend of narrative and evidence, illustrating both the persistence required to solve cold cases and the scientific rigor that had enabled long-lost details to emerge from shadow. The confessions of the suspect were dissected, each nuance examined. His calm narration of premeditation, the methodical stalking, the psychological calculation behind every movement, and the orchestration of absence to mask presence. Psychologists called as expert witnesses elaborated on his detachment, patience, and manipulation, framing his behavior as an extraordinary intersection of foresight, cunning, and lack of empathy, and the courtroom absorbed these insights with both fascination and horror. The mechanics of decades-long evasion laid bare. Outside the courtroom, the city remained charged with anticipation. News crews broadcast live, social media exploded with commentary. Residents revisited memories, noting subtle details once forgotten. A shadow in an alley, a stranger's fleeting glance, a moment of unease previously dismissed. Community conversations shifted from speculation to comprehension, a collective reckoning with the past, the realization that persistent evil had existed unnoticed, yet ultimately could be brought to light. Memorials to the girl multiplied, flowers, candles, notes placed where she had walked, symbolic gestures of recognition, grief, and solidarity, signaling that the city refused to let her absence be forgotten, even after decades. The prosecution presented a timeline of staggering precision, overlaying streets, movements, and evidence, connecting past observations with forensic breakthroughs and confessions. Digital simulations illustrated the choreography of the crime, the predator's calculated exploitation of human behavior, and the tragic sequence of events that had long eluded justice. Jurors were confronted with a full reconstruction, a cinematic yet factual recreation, reinforcing both the horror and the inevitability of accountability. The narrative was relentless, immersive, and unyielding, a fusion of crime, memory, and science that left little room for doubt. Testimonies from surviving witnesses and experts on criminal behavior contextualized the crime within patterns of predation, long-term evasion, and psychological manipulation. They highlighted the rare combination of opportunity, patience, and cunning, emphasizing how ordinary routines, urban anonymity, and human distraction had enabled his evasion. Yet, they also illustrated the power of persistence, technology, and cross-generational detective work, showing that even decades-long shadows could be pierced with diligence and expertise. Each expert corroborated the narrative, reinforcing the inexorability of justice and the meticulous orchestration of the investigation. The emotional weight in the courtroom was palpable. Family members, community representatives, and detectives absorbed the gravity of the confessions and evidence. The decades of uncertainty crystallized into a single, undeniable truth. The city, long haunted by absence, now confronted presence, the presence of guilt, accountability, and the consequences of patient evil. discussions outside the courthouse, in homes, schools, and public forums, centered on vigilance, memory, and communal responsibility. The cold case transforming into a lesson, a cautionary tale, and a narrative of resilience. Sentencing approached, and the room held a collective breath. The prosecution summarized years of painstaking investigation, confessions, and evidence with clarity and moral force. The defense's final arguments emphasized the passage of time and claimed mitigating factors. Yet the weight of proof, corroborated confession, and forensic certainty left little room for mitigation. The judge, aware of the historical gravity, delivered a sentence that reflected both the horror of the crime and the necessity of justice, the gavel striking with resonance, echoing through the courtroom, the city, and the hearts of those who had endured the long wait for resolution. Even as the man was escorted to begin his sentence, the ripple effects continued. News broadcasts revisited timelines, memorials persisted in public spaces, and community discussions emphasized awareness, safety, and the recognition of subtle warning signs. Social media threads dissected procedural methods, forensic breakthroughs, and the psychological profile of the perpetrator. Neighborhoods renewed their vigilance, families spoke openly about the lessons learned, and the girl's memory became a catalyst for urban consciousness, a reminder of vulnerability, the necessity of persistence, and the transformative power of delayed but definitive justice. Inside police offices, detectives reflected on their decades-long pursuit. They reviewed the evolution of evidence, confession, and trial, understanding the convergence of patience, technology, and psychological insight that had finally resolved the cold case. The story of 1998 was now a completed arc. A vanished life restored to memory, a predator brought to account, and a city forced to reconcile the past with present understanding. Yet, the emotional imprint, the grief, the fear, the trauma, and the community vigilance would remain, a reminder that justice, though achievable, cannot erase absence, and that the pursuit of truth is as much about healing as accountability. The city slowly exhaled, though the memory of that November night in 1998 lingered in the air like fog clinging to the streets. Even after the conviction, Chicago remained haunted by the absence that had stretched for decades, by the echo of footsteps that had vanished into darkness, and by the quiet knowledge that a life had been stolen, not erased, leaving a void in neighborhoods, families, and collective memory. Streets where she had walked became sites of reflection, corners where shadows had once held secrets now filled with memorials. Candles flickering, flowers carefully arranged, photographs, handwritten notes, the delicate persistence of remembrance. Residents paused on their commutes, the hum of daily life interrupted by the lingering ache of recognition. The quiet acknowledgement of absence transformed into the collective act of honoring a life that had been stolen but not forgotten. Inside homes, families discussed the lessons learned, the fragility of safety, the subtle patterns that could signal danger. Parents spoke to children about awareness, vigilance, and empathy, not in a tone of fear, but of quiet instruction rooted in the painful awareness of human vulnerability. Communities organized, forums convened, workshops held to discuss urban security, observation, and behavioral cues, all sparked by the long shadow of a crime resolved after 25 years. The cold case became more than a story. It became a lesson in observation, patience, and the moral imperative to bear witness. The narrative of loss transformed into a framework for vigilance and understanding. Detectives returned to the precinct, reviewing reports, evidence logs, and interview notes, their eyes scanning stacks of files that had once seemed insurmountable. They traced the timeline of investigation, mapping how persistence, technology, and intuition had converged to crack a case that many had written off as impossible. Every fiber, fingerprint, and digital reconstruction now served as a testament to the evolution of criminal investigation, to the patience and tenacity required to reconcile decades of uncertainty with the reality of accountability. In quiet moments, officers reflected on the human dimension, the grief, the anticipation, the tension that had driven them forward, a reminder that investigation is not merely about evidence but about preserving memory and seeking justice for those who cannot speak for themselves. The family grappled with closure, the complex interplay of relief, grief, and unresolved trauma. The mother held photographs of her daughter, studying her face, tracing features with fingers trembling from both sorrow and release. The father, older now, felt a weight lift and descend simultaneously. Decades of wondering, fearing, hoping, and surviving compressed into a single moment of truth, a recognition that justice, long delayed, had finally been enacted. Their grief persisted, a layered sorrow that acknowledged the years lost, yet interwoven with a fragile sense of peace, the knowledge that their daughter's story had been reclaimed, her absence transformed into a legacy of resilience and remembrance. Outside, the neighborhoods where she had lived transformed into quiet memorial landscapes. Residents laid flowers in corners, photographs at lampposts, notes tucked into the branches of trees where she had once walked beneath their shade. Streetlights reflected on damp asphalt, and the rain, a constant witness, carried whispers of memory across alleys and avenues. Conversations drifted into recollections of small kindnesses, fleeting encounters, and moments of ordinary life that had suddenly acquired extraordinary resonance. The city itself, its architecture and streetscapes, became a silent archivist of memory, preserving the contours of a life interrupted, and the presence of those who had persisted in seeking truth. Journalists returned with retrospective pieces, highlighting the detective work, technological breakthroughs, and the confessions that had made resolution possible. Documentaries emerged, interviews recorded, analyses conducted, all framing the story as both cautionary and inspirational. A tale of loss, patience, ingenuity, and eventual justice. The narrative was dissected in classrooms, law enforcement training programs, and community forums, serving as a case study in human observation, procedural persistence, and the capacity of science and psychology to bridge gaps of time and memory. The cold case became a tool for education, its lessons echoing far beyond the city streets where the crime had occurred. Even the broader public engaged in reflection. Conversations in cafes, libraries, and online forums centered on human vulnerability, societal responsibility, and the delicate balance between routine and vigilance. Parents reconsidered routines, neighbors observed each other more attentively, and community networks strengthened as the shared memory of the crime transformed into proactive measures for safety. The story was no longer solely one of loss, but one of enduring vigilance, the recognition that the passage of time cannot erase the consequences of human action, and that the collective memory of a community can serve as both shield and compass. Psychologists continued to analyze the perpetrator's behavior, producing insights that informed law enforcement and the public alike. His patience, detachment, and calculated manipulation were studied as extreme examples of criminal planning and evasion. Detectives, prosecutors, and community educators incorporated these findings into discussions of behavioral recognition, situational awareness, and the psychology of premeditated crime. Each revelation underscored the interplay between human observation, intuition, and technological advancement, highlighting how decades-old crimes could be resolved through a combination of persistence, science, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. For the detectives, the case remained a vivid reminder of professional dedication. They continued to meet, reviewing methodologies, refining procedures, and mentoring new officers. The cold case file, once dormant, now became an active teaching tool, illustrating how meticulous record-keeping, thorough investigation, and careful analysis of even the smallest details could converge to solve crimes thought impossible. Lessons in patience, empathy, and meticulous observation were embedded in training, ensuring that the tragedy of 1998 would inform not only one city but potentially countless others facing similar shadows. The family engaged with support networks, connecting with others who had endured prolonged uncertainty. Shared experiences, conversations, and collective grief created a tapestry of resilience and mutual understanding, validating emotions long suppressed and reinforcing the importance of community. The memory of the girl became a beacon of remembrance, a symbol of endurance, and a reminder that even when absence dominates, the act of bearing witness and pursuing justice can transform grief into purpose. In the stillness of night, neighborhoods reflected on the invisible traces left behind by the crime. Streetlights glimmered on wet asphalt, Shadows stretched across familiar paths, and the wind whispered through trees, carrying stories of vigilance, loss, and reflection. Residents paused in small gestures, lighting candles, leaving flowers, or simply recalling a moment of connection from decades past. Transforming ordinary spaces into living memorials, the presence of memory suffusing the city with both grief and resilience. The narrative of 1998 was now fully integrated into urban consciousness, a living reminder that actions, both criminal and righteous, ripple across time, shaping neighborhoods, families, and collective awareness. Detectives, journalists, educators, and citizens alike carried forward the lessons of the cold case. The necessity of persistence, the moral imperative to act, and the interplay of technology, psychology, and human observation in uncovering truth. The city remained vigilant, aware that even as one chapter closed, the responsibility to observe, record, and protect continued. The memory of the girl, once defined by absence, now permeated streets, homes, and institutions, her story a permanent imprint on Chicago's collective consciousness, a testament to endurance, accountability, and the power of unrelenting pursuit of justice. The story of Chicago 1998 spread beyond the city, rippling across state lines, national news, and eventually international media. News anchors recounted the sequence of events with hushed awe. Journalists replayed footage of the arrest, trial, and confessions, and social media feeds buzzed with commentary, speculation, and reflection. The cold case, once a story relegated to dusty files and whispered memories, had become a symbol of persistence, of the relentless pursuit of truth, and of the possibility that even the most impenetrable shadows could eventually be illuminated. Citizens far removed from the original crime followed the trial, dissected the timeline, marveled at forensic technology, and debated the psychological profile of a predator who had remained invisible for a quarter-century. The fascination rooted not only in horror but in a collective recognition of human vulnerability. Media outlets produced in-depth documentaries, podcasts, and investigative specials, re-examining not only the events of 1998, but the decades-long pursuit of justice. Experts in criminology, forensic science, and psychology were interviewed, offering insight into the meticulous planning of the crime, the procedural missteps of the initial investigation, and the technological breakthroughs that ultimately revealed the truth. The cold case became a lesson for professionals and civilians alike, a case study in the evolution of criminal investigation, in the patience and precision required to solve complex cases, and in the profound impact such crimes leave on communities long after the initial act. For the family, media attention was both validating and overwhelming. Each article, segment, or podcast episode recounted the stolen years, the suffering endured, and the eventual triumph of justice. Interviews required composure as they recounted memories of their daughter, her life before the abduction, and the decades of uncertainty that followed. They relived grief, fear, hope, and the sudden surge of relief brought by the confession and conviction. Yet amidst the exposure, there was a sense of reclamation. The story was no longer defined solely by absence, but by acknowledgement, remembrance, and the persistent effort to reconcile loss with accountability. Social networks amplified collective memory, creating virtual spaces for discussion, reflection, and solidarity. Forums and threads dissected the forensic methods used, debated law enforcement strategies, and analyzed psychological profiling. Ordinary citizens reflected on personal experiences of unease or encounters with unknown danger, comparing them to the details of the cold case. Schools and universities incorporated the story into lessons on urban safety, criminal psychology, and investigative methodology, demonstrating how a single unresolved crime could ripple outward, shaping perceptions, behaviors, and societal awareness long after the initial act. Within law enforcement, the case prompted reflection and reform. Training programs emphasized the lessons learned, focusing on patience, meticulous documentation, and the integration of new technology. Detectives reviewed decades of cold case files, recognizing patterns previously overlooked, and integrating the insights gained from the Chicago 1998 case into protocols for ongoing investigations. The resolution demonstrated that persistence, collaboration, and innovation could overcome years of stagnation, providing hope for families still awaiting answers in unresolved cases. Psychologists examined the perpetrator's confession as a rare glimpse into a mind both patient and calculating. His detachment, his ability to observe and manipulate without detection, and his precise timing were dissected to understand behavioral patterns and potential warning signs. Training sessions for law enforcement incorporated these findings, teaching officers to recognize subtle indicators of predation, the importance of community reports, and the value of persistence in piecing together seemingly disparate evidence. The cold case thus became both a cautionary tale and a tool for proactive prevention, extending its impact far beyond the immediate tragedy. Community reactions continued to unfold. Residents of neighborhoods involved in the crime revisited their memories, recalling fleeting moments of observation that now carried profound significance. Discussions centered on vigilance, the importance of reporting anomalies, and the collective responsibility to protect vulnerable individuals. Civic organizations organized safety workshops, neighborhood patrols, and awareness campaigns, demonstrating that the legacy of a single crime could catalyze sustained community engagement and proactive measures for protection. Memorials evolved into living archives. Candles, photographs, and handwritten notes placed in her memory became semi-permanent markers of communal recognition. Local museums and libraries curated exhibits, contextualizing the crime within urban history, law enforcement evolution, and societal responses to predation and violence. The young woman's life, once defined by absence, became emblematic of both loss and the enduring power of memory, ensuring that her story remained integrated into cultural consciousness and urban identity. In courtrooms across the country, prosecutors and detectives cited the Chicago 1998 cold case as a benchmark for the resolution of decades-old crimes. Conferences on forensic innovation, cold case investigation, and criminal psychology featured panels discussing the case, the methods used, and the human dimensions of long-term trauma. The combination of confession, forensic evidence, and technological application offered a blueprint for approaching unresolved cases, demonstrating the interplay of meticulous record-keeping, observation, and patience in achieving justice. The media coverage also sparked debates on ethical reporting, victim privacy, and the portrayal of criminal psychology. Discussions emerged on the balance between public interest and respect for the family, the role of sensationalism in shaping perception, and the responsibility of journalists to accurately contextualize long-term investigations. Ethical frameworks were revisited, training programs updated, and professional standards reinforced, illustrating how the resolution of a single cold case could influence broader societal norms in journalism and criminal reporting. Psychologists and sociologists studied the community impact of the case, examining collective trauma, memory, and resilience. Urban spaces where she had lived and walked were analyzed as sites of both risk and reflection, understanding how communities process unresolved crimes over decades. Researchers published findings on how collective memory shapes behavior, vigilance, and civic engagement, framing the cold case not only as a singular criminal resolution but as a lens for understanding societal dynamics, fear, trust, and human response to prolonged uncertainty. The family engaged with these developments cautiously, contributing to interviews, public awareness campaigns, and educational programs, ensuring that their daughter's story served a purpose beyond tragedy. They emphasized vigilance, empathy, and the importance of maintaining awareness without succumbing to fear. Their involvement transformed grief into action, anchoring the legacy of the cold case in both human and societal consciousness. Detectives continued to reflect on the evolution of criminal investigation, drawing from the Chicago 1998 case to refine techniques, protocols, and approaches. They emphasized cross-generational collaboration, noting how persistence, new technology, and psychological insight converged to resolve a case long thought impossible. Each new cold case file was approached with a blend of historical understanding and contemporary innovation, the lessons of decades-long observation and patient reconstruction informing every investigative decision. The city itself carried the residue of the cold case. Streets, alleys, and neighborhoods remembered her absence and her memory. Residents walked more attentively, conversations included reflections on vigilance, and the young woman's life became a touchstone for understanding both human vulnerability and resilience. Community groups, educators, and civic organizations integrated her story into training, awareness programs, and public education, ensuring that the memory of 1998 remained a living force for safety, empathy, and accountability. The city never forgot that night in 1998. Even decades later, the rain-soaked streets, flickering neon signs, and empty alleys held whispers of absence, a lingering reminder that life can vanish in a moment, leaving a void that stretches across time. In apartments overlooking the city, residents recalled the inexplicable sense of unease they had felt, the fleeting glimpses of shadows, the quiet uncertainty that had never been fully understood. With the arrest and conviction, closure arrived in one sense, yet the emotional imprint remained indelible, a scar upon the collective psyche, an enduring tension between memory and reality, between fear and relief. Families of victims attended memorial services, still grappling with grief, yet now armed with understanding. The mother often walked to a park where her daughter had played, each step a meditation on years lost and regained in memory. The father spoke at schools and civic forums, sharing the story not to frighten but to inform, to cultivate vigilance, empathy, and awareness. Their grief was layered, interwoven with resilience. A quiet power drawn from decades of uncertainty finally met with truth. The city observed, absorbing lessons from their perseverance, reflecting on its own role in providing both anonymity and opportunity, and considering how awareness and community vigilance might prevent future tragedies. Psychologists studied the residual trauma, noting how delayed justice affects memory, perception, and emotional processing. Victims' families reported cycles of relief and lingering sorrow, moments of peace interrupted by recollection, anniversaries marked by quiet reflection, and an ongoing negotiation between closure and memory. Community members reported heightened awareness, subtle changes in behavior, and a persistent vigilance shaped by experience. The cold case became a lens for understanding human response to prolonged uncertainty, illustrating that closure is neither absolute nor linear, but rather a continual interaction between reality, memory, and emotional resilience. Neighborhoods subtly transformed, the presence of memorials and markers influencing daily life. Parents guided children along safer paths, neighbors watched one another more closely, and urban routines adjusted to accommodate vigilance. Public workshops, safety forums, and community policing initiatives multiplied, each rooted in the recognition that collective attention could serve as both preventive measure and communal acknowledgement of past absence. The streets themselves became vessels of memory, each corner and alley reflecting both the tragedy of loss and the community's resolve to reclaim safety and awareness. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to refine investigative practices. Cold case units expanded, integrating lessons from Chicago 1998, focusing on patience, cross-referencing historical records, employing advanced forensic techniques, and emphasizing the importance of human observation. Officers revisited unresolved cases, applying new tools and psychological insights to old files, reconstructing events with unprecedented clarity. The story of 1998 served as both precedent and warning, demonstrating how even long-forgotten crimes could be solved with persistence, innovation, and collaboration across departments, generations, and disciplines. Media coverage continued to shape perception and discourse. Documentaries, podcasts, and investigative series dissected the crime, the investigation, and the social response, blending narrative tension with factual precision. Analysts highlighted procedural lessons, psychological patterns, and community engagement, drawing broader conclusions about urban vulnerability, delayed justice, and the intersection of human behavior with technology. Audiences were captivated not only by the resolution but by the demonstration of patience, ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of truth. The case became emblematic, a benchmark for cold case investigation and the enduring capacity of memory to shape public consciousness. The perpetrator remained a focal point of analysis. Psychologists, criminologists, and law enforcement officials examined his behaviors, motivations, and methods, emphasizing the extraordinary patience, manipulation, and observation required to evade detection for decades. Interrogation recordings and trial transcripts became study material, revealing subtle manipulations, calculated pauses, and methodical planning. Each detail illuminated the fine line between ordinary perception and predatory intent, providing lessons for law enforcement and civilians alike. The city absorbed these lessons collectively, understanding that vigilance, documentation, and memory are tools of protection as potent as law enforcement itself. Families and community groups continued to memorialize the victim, ensuring her story remained integrated into public consciousness. Gardens, plaques, and community art projects honored her memory, blending grief with education and civic engagement. Schools incorporated her story into curricula on safety, psychology, and civic responsibility, transforming a singular tragedy into a lasting framework for understanding vulnerability, resilience, and justice. Each act of remembrance reinforced communal bonds, creating a collective acknowledgement that, even in the face of prolonged absence, memory could be preserved, purpose could emerge, and vigilance could be cultivated. The emotional resonance of the case extended into personal narratives. Residents recalled the mundane details of 1998, rain on streets, flickering lights, distant conversations, now imbued with significance. Each minor observation, previously overlooked, was reframed as part of a broader mosaic of awareness and human behavior. Psychologists noted that prolonged ambiguity amplified these memories, embedding subtle cautionary patterns in consciousness, shaping future behavior in ways both conscious and unconscious. The city's collective memory became a living archive of observation, vigilance, and subtle trauma, each individual's recollection a thread woven into the communal narrative of loss and resilience. Law enforcement reflected on the broader implications. Cold case procedures were revised, integrating technology, forensic advances, and psychological profiling into standard operating practices. Training emphasized patience, meticulous observation, and historical reconstruction. The lessons of Chicago 1998 informed approaches to other unresolved cases, creating an institutional memory designed to bridge temporal gaps and recover truths long obscured. The resolution of one case became a blueprint, a demonstration that persistence and precision, combined with evolving tools and techniques, could yield justice even decades after the fact. For the family, the emotional journey continued. They engaged in advocacy, sharing insights on coping with uncertainty, supporting other families affected by long-term missing person cases, and fostering public awareness. Their grief evolved into purpose, transforming sorrow into community engagement, education, and vigilance. Each speech, workshop, and interview reinforced the enduring power of memory, the necessity of persistence, and the importance of confronting fear with awareness and action. The young woman's story became a living legacy, not only a narrative of loss but a catalyst for communal resilience and vigilance. The city itself retained a quiet tension. Streets and alleys once associated with absence became sites of reflection and heightened awareness. Residents walked paths with increased attention, noticing subtle anomalies, recognizing patterns of behavior, and communicating with neighbors in ways that reinforced communal safety. Public installations, memorials, and educational programs ensured that the story of 1998 remained a living presence, a constant reminder of the consequences of absence, the power of persistence, and the capacity for human vigilance to shape security, perception, and memory. In homes, schools, and civic forums, discussions emphasized the duality of tragedy and closure. Residents reflected on vulnerability, resilience, and the societal responsibilities of observation and reporting. Students learned not only the procedural aspects of investigation but also the moral implications of community engagement, empathy, and awareness. The story of the cold case permeated urban consciousness, creating a culture of vigilance that balanced memory with education, grief with empowerment, and reflection with practical application. Even decades later, anniversaries of the night she disappeared were observed quietly. Candles burned, flowers placed, and moments of silence observed, both private and communal. Families shared stories, neighbors recounted memories, and educators emphasized lessons learned. The cold case, though resolved legally, remained alive emotionally, shaping perceptions, behaviors, and the collective consciousness of Chicago. It was a testament to the endurance of memory, the necessity of persistence, and the profound ways in which one act of evil and the long pursuit of truth can shape a city's social, psychological, and cultural fabric. Even after the gavel fell, even after the doors of the courtroom closed and the city exhaled its collective relief, the memory of 1998 lingered, a persistent hum beneath the rhythm of everyday life. Chicago breathed differently now, not with fear, but with the awareness of absence, of fragility, of the quiet mechanisms of human observation that could determine life or death. Streets, once merely thoroughfares, became living memorials, every alley, lamp post, and sidewalk echoing with unspoken stories, the invisible traces of a young woman whose life had been stolen but whose presence had never truly left. Families walked cautiously along the same streets, their children held close, eyes scanning for anomalies, minds alert to the lessons etched into urban memory. Conversations in homes revolved around vigilance, awareness, and the subtle signs of danger, blending normality with the extraordinary weight of collective experience. Parents reminded children to notice patterns, to trust instincts, and to speak up, tiny acts of prevention that became rituals in ordinary life. The city itself seemed to pulse with awareness, a living network of observation and memory, each individual a node, each action a thread connecting past tragedy with present vigilance. The detectives who had labored for decades felt the aftershocks of resolution. They walked the precincts, reviewed files, and spoke to younger officers, recounting moments when intuition intersected with persistence, when patience overcame decades of uncertainty. Each case file, once dormant, now hummed with the energy of lessons learned, procedural innovations, and human resilience. They spoke of observation, of timing, of the importance of memory, of how even the smallest detail, an unremarkable fiber, a fleeting shadow, could become a linchpin in the pursuit of justice. The city's safety depended not only on law enforcement but on the intricate weave of collective attention, patience, and persistence, a web spun across decades by countless invisible hands. Memorials remained as tangible markers of remembrance. Candles flickered, photographs leaned against walls, handwritten notes rested on branches, the elements slowly fading them yet imbuing them with a sense of impermanence that mirrored human memory. Residents continued to add to these tributes, leaving small mementos, messages of hope, and tokens of solidarity. Even years later, the rituals persisted. Anniversaries marked by quiet reflection, communal gatherings to honor absence, and the persistent acknowledgement that one life, gone too soon, could leave ripples that shaped the consciousness of a city, its routines, and its moral compass. Media coverage evolved, not into spectacle, but into reflection. Documentaries revisited forensic breakthroughs, psychological profiles, and procedural lessons, emphasizing the intersection of human diligence and technological innovation. Podcasts and investigative specials highlighted not just the crime but the decades-long perseverance of those who refused to forget. Audiences learned about observation, intuition, and patience, understanding that justice is not always immediate, that human resilience can outlast the patience of predators, and that the memory of absence is a powerful catalyst for vigilance, empathy, and civic responsibility. Psychologists continued to analyze both the perpetrator and the community. His detachment, patience, and strategic manipulation became case studies, illustrating how human behavior, predictability, and social oversight could be exploited. Simultaneously, sociologists examined the impact of prolonged trauma, the communal processing of grief, and the methods through which societies integrate absence into collective consciousness. The cold case became both cautionary tale and framework for understanding the interplay of human psychology, memory, and justice, creating a narrative that transcended the specifics of one crime, influencing policy, education, and communal behavior. The family carried forward their daughter's story with purpose. They met with other families, spoke at public forums, and shared their experiences with law enforcement, ensuring that the lessons learned extended beyond their personal grief. Their advocacy was rooted in a profound awareness. Closure, though vital, is not the end. Memory, vigilance, and collective responsibility must persist. Every lecture, every workshop, every conversation reinforced the significance of observation, empathy, and proactive engagement. The daughter's absence became a presence in the moral and social fabric of the city, a force for reflection, education, and prevention. Community engagement deepened in subtle, persistent ways. Neighborhood watch programs were strengthened, educational workshops on safety became routine, and public forums discussed both the procedural and psychological dimensions of crime. Residents spoke openly about past experiences, noticing and recording small anomalies, sharing insights, and fostering vigilance. The city's collective memory became a resource, a network of awareness where the lessons of absence were codified into both social behavior and civic consciousness. Streets, alleys, and public spaces were imbued with historical awareness, the past coexisting with the present in a persistent, quiet vigilance. Law enforcement agencies integrated the case into operational training. Cold case units used Chicago 1998 as a benchmark, analyzing every step of the investigation, confession, and trial. Technological innovations, DNA analysis, digital mapping, forensic reconstruction, were cross-referenced with human observation, witness memory, and psychological profiling. Officers learned that patience, attention to detail, and collaboration across generations could overcome decades of uncertainty. The resolution became a procedural and philosophical touchstone, demonstrating that even the most elusive shadows could be illuminated through diligence, expertise, and the interplay of science and human intuition. The perpetrator, confined to a cell, remained a subject of analysis and societal fascination. His words, actions, and demeanor provided insight into the mechanics of prolonged evasion, calculated patience, and detachment. Forensic psychologists continued to dissect his behavioral patterns, observing how anticipation, observation, and manipulation intersected to create prolonged opportunity. Law enforcement training incorporated these lessons, teaching officers to recognize subtle signs of premeditated risk, human behavioral patterns, and environmental cues, ensuring that the tragedy of 1998 informed future protective measures and investigative strategies. Within the city, the narrative of absence and resolution became a cornerstone of urban consciousness. Residents recounted the story to children, integrated it into lessons on safety and awareness, and reflected on their own roles in communal vigilance. Neighborhoods memorialized not only the life lost but the persistence of those who sought justice, the collective efforts of detectives, family, and civic institutions forming a web of memory and accountability. Streets became repositories of lessons learned, sidewalks reflecting vigilance, and city structures silently reminding citizens of the interplay between observation, memory, and action. Anniversaries of the disappearance transformed into communal reflection, moments of quiet meditation, candle lighting, and storytelling. Public discussions explored memory, grief, resilience, and vigilance, demonstrating how a single absence could galvanize social awareness across decades. Schools taught about observation and critical thinking, parents guided children in understanding patterns of behavior, and neighborhoods integrated lessons of both caution and hope into daily life. The cold case, though legally resolved, remained a living narrative, shaping perceptions, behaviors, and moral frameworks. Ultimately, the story of Chicago 1998 was one of enduring duality: absence and presence, grief and resilience, trauma and closure. The young woman's life, stolen yet never forgotten, became a lens through which the city viewed itself, a mirror reflecting human vulnerability, societal responsibility, and the persistent necessity of memory. Communities, families, and individuals learned that justice is often delayed, but vigilance, observation, and collective engagement can bridge decades of uncertainty, transforming tragedy into enduring lessons. Even as decades passed, the faint echo of her footsteps lingered, the rustle of leaves, the flicker of streetlights, the rhythm of rain on pavement serving as reminders that memory, justice, and communal vigilance are intertwined. The cold case remained a testament to the human capacity for patience, resilience, and moral commitment. It reminded the city, its residents, and the world that absence leaves marks not easily erased, but that truth, accountability, and remembrance can endure, shaping behavior, culture, and consciousness long after the initial crime. And so, Chicago moved forward, always carrying 1998 in its collective heart. A story of loss transformed into vigilance, trauma into awareness, and absence into enduring presence. The young woman's life, though cut short, became eternal in memory, in teaching, in communal conscience. The city remained vigilant, informed, and aware, the cold case resolved, yet its echoes forever shaping the rhythm of streets, the habits of neighborhoods, and the moral fabric of a community that refused to forget.